Hey everyone, Richard Robbins here. Hope you're well. Welcome to 2021. We made it. Hey. Anyway, I have an update, a market update for the Toronto Real Estate Board. So there's a few things I want to discuss with you. Number one, I'm going to talk about obviously December over December of 2019. You can see that on your screen right now. Then what I'm also going to do is I want to talk about each quarter last year, because you'll find this very interesting, because generally the second quarter of the year is the busiest quarter of the year, but that wasn't true last year, obviously. And then I'm going to talk about the last 5 years and the total sales that took place on the Toronto Real Estate Board. And it's actually called the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. And then also I'm going to talk about the average prices as well, just to give you an idea of what's going on. And then I'll give you a quick overview of what I think is going to happen in 2021. Nobody knows for sure, but at least I'll give you my opinion. So first of all, let's look at December. Well, obviously, if you look at this, 2019, you did 4,399 sales. In 2020, in December, you did 7,180. That's up by 63%. But what I want you to look at is the months of inventory. You see it says MOI there. Now, months of inventory, just determines whether you got a buyer's market, seller's market, balanced market. 4 to 6 is balanced. Above 6 is going to be a buyer's market. Below 4 is going to be a seller's market. So if we go back to 19, you had 1.7 months of inventory, which is like a crazy seller's market. That's like very busy. Prices are obviously going up, multiple offers and everything. But look what happened a year later. You had 1.1. Like that's crazy. That months of inventory is so low. Probably the lowest in Canada, maybe, other than maybe Ottawa, but I mean very, very strong. Much lower than Vancouver, to give you some idea. Then let's look at price. You can see if we compare what the prices were in December of 19 to what they were in December of 2020, they're up by 11%, up to 932,000. And we're getting very close to the average price in Toronto being $1 million. Now, it is over $1 million in Vancouver. Vancouver has always been the most expensive city in Canada for a long time. But it's very interesting what's starting to happen, because Toronto is starting to creep up. And I'll tell you, the difference between Vancouver and Toronto is really starting to get much smaller. And that'll probably continue for the next little while. What about Fortin quarters? This is what I found the most interesting. So if we go back and look at 2019 in the first quarter, we did 16,221 sales. We did 19,849 in 2020. So you can see that's up substantially. That's up by what? 3,600 sales. That's a lot of homes with 3,600 sales. But look what happened in the second quarter. 27,891 in 2019. And then we dropped to 16,282. Obviously, COVID related. March, 1st of March, middle of March, that's when, COVID really started to have an effect, and everybody got scared, right? Including me, we all did. We didn't know how to deal with it. We didn't know what to do. We hadn't heard from a lot of the experts yet, and we were worried. We didn't know how deadly is this really going to be. And of course, everybody just shut down. Right? They didn't want to put their home on the market. They didn't want people coming in their house. They didn't want to be looking at homes. They weren't buying homes, which is reasonable when there's that much uncertainty and fear that takes place. But then what happened? We got used to it a little bit. We were hearing from experts. Obviously, we felt there was a plan put in place, whether you agreed with the plan or not. And of course, real estate was deemed an essential service. And everybody sort of got back to work. And there was a pent-up demand. Plus, we had all the fundamentals for a very busy market other than COVID, because, mortgage rates were very, very low. And some sectors of the economy continued to do very, very well. So you can see, look what happened in the third quarter. We went from 24,019 to 32,000, almost 33,000, which isn't far off 10,000 more sales. And then look what happened in the fourth quarter. We went from 20,000 to over 26,000, which is an extra 6,000 sales. So basically, the last half of the year was crazy, crazy busy. What about prices? Or I should say, here's your total numbers. I'm sorry, for the last 5 years. So if we go back to 2016, which was, I don't know if you remember that, it was a crazy year. It was so busy. We did 113,000 sales. Then we dropped down in 17 to 92,000. Then in 18, we dropped to 78,000. A lot going on, stress testing. We can talk about all the things that are influencing the market. But then in 19, we got up to 88,000. Well, look what happened in 20. We got to 94,000. So substantially more than 19, when we had one very, very weak quarter. Prices, look at prices. You know, if you go back to 2016, about 724,000, then it moved up to 805, then it dropped off a little bit, and then of course the market took off again, back up to 815, and we are at 915,000. You know, that was the average price in 2020 at the end of 2020. Amazing. So there's good things happening in the Toronto market overall, I think, for everybody that's a real estate sales professional. So what is my outlook? Well, if you look at 2020, it was a very interesting year because there was some trend changes. You think about, you know, people were starting to move out of the urban centers because they could sell, say, their condominium, and of course they could work remotely. They didn't want to be stuck in 600 square feet or whatever the case is, and maybe could buy themselves a detached house 60, 90, 2 hours minutes away, right? 2 hours away. So things started to change, and all of a sudden the condo market started to weaken in the last half of 2020 because people are going, well, I don't want to buy a condo, right? You know, I now can work remotely. I'm going to move away. Or people buying condos, we're putting them on the markets. We weren't selling as many, more coming on the market. Months of inventory goes up. What ends up happening, right? And people were leaning more towards the detached marketplace. I think people wanted to have space, right? They didn't want to be, you know, getting in elevators and that sort of thing. What's going to happen this year? Well, first of all, I think the condo market will be just fine this year. I really believe that. I think it's going to start to recover. I think overall the market's going to be very good. Again, all the fundamentals are there. Many people had a very good year last year, and the people that suffered the most, unfortunately, were the people, you know, in jobs that really can't afford homes anyway. The people that can afford homes, you know, a lot of those people still did fairly well last year. So it's a very interesting year. You know, there was so many things happening that we're not used to, but I think this year is going to turn out to be just fine. I suspect we'll do as many sales this year as we did last year, you know, right around that, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but I think overall it's going to be a relatively strong year. And if you're out there, if you're in the game, there's no question you can make it all happen. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this update. I wish you a wonderful 2021. We still got a while to go with this COVID thing. Obviously, it's going to be the end of the third quarter, maybe the end of the fourth quarter before we have enough people vaccinated that we have herd immunity. But let's just say, hopefully, this is going to be the last year we're going to have to deal with COVID-19 and we all can get back to normal. And I just want to say to you all, make sure when you're out there that you're part of the solution and you're not part of the problem. Give your customers options. Everybody feels differently about this. Everybody is dealing differently about this. You know, you now can do listing presentations, you know, using Zoom, which is great. You can do walkthroughs using Zoom and other technologies. So I'm just saying, be flexible in your approach. Make sure that you understand what your customer is looking for and help them get a home, okay, or sell a home the way that makes them most comfortable. Remember, everybody, no matter what's going on, even with COVID, it's a beautiful life. Make it count.